Well, good morning, everyone, and I thank you all for being here today. Before we get started, I do know that we've got several elected officials in the audience here today. Of course, we've got Representative Tim Kerner, Jefferson Parish Councilman Ricky Templett, Representative Ryan Boriak, Representative Philip Tarver, President Guy McGinnis, and President Robbie Miller. And if we've had any late arrivals, yes, sir, Representative Hill from District 78 in Jefferson Parish. So thank you for being here, Representative. So I think it's safe to say that over the last 3 weeks, we've had some exciting announcements for the coastal program. 2 weeks ago, we were on Queen Bess Island celebrating the completion of that restoration of that primary migratory bird habitat and a primary nesting ground for brown pelicans. Just last week, the governor was here and announced over $130 million for the Mississippi River reintroduction in the Maurepas Swamp project. And today is yet another exciting day for the state's coastal program and for all who call South Louisiana home. So a record amount of work is being done by the Coastal Protection and Restoration Authority in addressing coastal restoration and hurricane protection in this state. And I hope that the public recognizes the progress that we are making. But it's also important for the public to know that there is a record amount of coordination and collaboration that is taking place under this administration. And so if we're going to be truly successful in addressing the various issues of restoration and protection across our coast, then every agency that touches this issue has a role to play. And so I want to thank all of the various cabinet secretaries for being here today. I especially want to thank Governor Edwards for being here today and for his unwavering support of our efforts to restore and protect our coast. And so I know we're in Baton Rouge today, but I would ask that we please give Governor Edwards a coastal Louisiana welcome to the LSU Center for River Studies.
Good morning, everybody. Thank you. Thank you very much. What a perfect day to talk about water management. I appreciate all of you being here today as we announce an ambitious second-term agenda for our state's coastal program. Over the next 4 years, CPRA will invest nearly $1 billion each year on implementation of some of the most important projects in the Coastal Master Plan. But in order for us to be even more successful, my second term will also be devoted to policy initiatives that enhance collaboration and innovation. Last year, we proudly celebrated, come on up, Colonel Murphy. Nothing like being called out, right? Thank you very much for being here. Last year, we proudly celebrated 57 projects in construction, more than any other time in our state's history. Next year, we're going to beat our own record with 60 projects in construction. And the exciting part for me, the most exciting part is with the projects that we believe that we will start over the next 4 years, when they are fully built, we will start creating more land than we expect to lose in the state of Louisiana. Now that is big. Today, I'll be making 2 major announcements regarding funding that will significantly help us reach our goals. First of all, I will be committing at least $115 million in state surplus to the Coastal Trust Fund. That's big. Of course, the REC has to recognize the surplus before it becomes available. And the types of projects that we will fund will be incredibly important. For example, $60 million of that will go to the non-federal share of the West Shore project, critically important to the parishes of St. Charles, St. John, and St. James. I also want to outline a series of policy priorities that will focus our efforts as a state over the next 4 years. You know, the Coastal Master Plan is Louisiana's plan. Today, I'm signing an executive order that will establish a Chief Resilience Officer tasked with integrating Coastal Master Plan data into the decision-making of all other state agencies. I'm pleased to announce that I'm naming Charles Sutcliffe as our first Chief Resilience Officer. Charles has worked on coastal policy in the governor's office since 2011 and has built a strong understanding of the needs of our coast and will do an excellent job reaching across agencies to improve our resilience. Improving our resilience and providing for a more sustainable coast into the future will also require a more proactive approach to greenhouse gas emissions. Louisiana has led the nation in its approach to adapting to a changing environment. Science tells us that rising sea level will become the biggest challenge that we face, threatening to overwhelm our best efforts to protect and restore our coast. Science also tells us that sea level rise is being driven by global greenhouse gas emissions. Another truth we can't ignore is that our state economy and the nation at large depends on Louisiana's strong industrial sector. We provide the energy and the petrochemical products that the country runs on. Soon I will issue an executive order establishing a Climate Initiatives Task Force. It will explore opportunities for a balanced approach, one that works with partners like DNR, DEQ, and CPRA, but also with industry and with other stakeholders to find common ground to reduce emissions originating inside our state. We are not announcing targets today or metrics, and we are certainly not starting with a series of regulations. Rather, the job of the task force will be to determine, based on their expertise and careful study of this issue in the Louisiana context, what the right next steps for us should look like. It is my belief that Louisiana is uniquely positioned to craft a solution to this crisis that can work for everyone. We are an energy state with a coastal crisis. It's time that we begin to take on the cause of sea level rise and not just accept and adapt to its impacts. I look forward to us doing this together. Louisiana will do its part to address the causes of climate change. We in Louisiana are not alone in facing climate change, but Louisiana has a tool in this fight that other regions do not, the Mississippi and Atchafalaya rivers. Now and into the future, we must make sure that these rivers remain fit to use and that they remain available to serve us economically and ecologically. Through several new policy initiatives, Louisiana will work in partnership with the Army Corps of Engineers to more holistically manage the Mississippi and Atchafalaya rivers to integrate the goals of flood protection, ecosystem restoration, navigation, water quality, and fisheries habitat. As we utilize the river, we want to be thoughtful about the potential for disruption to the fisheries. So today, we are announcing the launch of an oyster resource plan co-led by the Department of Wildlife and Fisheries and CPRA, and this plan is currently in development. However, we have identified $43 million that will be available in the next fiscal year to help ensure the sustainability of the oyster industry. So we are mindful of the effects that coastal restoration will have on our resources in the future, but we all must recognize that these basins are changing with or without the implementation of large-scale restoration projects. Additionally, it's time the Atchafalaya River Basin be better integrated into the Coastal Master Plan. This year, I'll be signing an executive order establishing an Atchafalaya River Basin Task Force to identify strategies to conserve and sustain the economic, cultural, and natural resources of the basin and appropriately utilize its resources for ecosystem restoration. My next priority is going to capitalize on the economic advantages of coastal protection and restoration. CPRA's investments will make us safer and more resilient, but they also represent an opportunity to grow local economies, build an inclusive coastal restoration and water management industry, and diversify the economies of our coastal region. And the expertise, the experience that we will develop here with respect to water management will be unlike that which exists anywhere else in the country. And we will then start to export that experience and that expertise. That, too, has a lot of promise for our future. Dr. Lauren Scott recently conducted an impact study on the construction of the Mid-Barataria and Mid-Breton sediment diversions. According to Dr. Scott, these two projects would generate $3.1 billion in sales, $809 million in household earnings, and average over 2,200 jobs per year over the 6-year construction window. These projects are crucial to the long-term sustainability of the coast, but they are also economic development as well. CPRA will work strategically with LED, the Louisiana Workforce Commission, and the Department of Public Safety and Corrections to make sure that each investment we make along the coast does as much for the economy and our workers as possible. Finally, I want to recommit our coastal program and all of its facets to following the science. To the degree that we can maximize the role of science, we minimize the role of politics. And I think that that's critically important if we're going to have a plan that will enjoy the confidence and support, not just of the people of Louisiana, but around the country. As we move forward to implement the second term agenda, we're going to call on all of our partners to leverage their skills and experience in collaborative and innovative ways so that we can accomplish the best results for our state. We want to take that one step farther today by formally establishing Louisiana's Innovation and Collaboration Hub at the Water Institute of the Gulf. This hub will be the home of a model repository, a searchable virtual library that will provide access to researchers and technical experts to the models and databases used to develop the Coastal Master Plan. Each of the priorities laid out today is designed to address a significant problem facing coastal Louisiana in new ways through strategic partnerships. By working together, we can amplify our efforts to find solutions to the complex problems we face. And now I'd like to invite Chip and the other secretaries to come up and say a few words about their roles and plan programs to help us make progress on each of these priority areas. And when I say a few words, don't be alarmed. It is a few words each. There's a lot of people who are going to come and speak. But having them here today illustrates how many stakeholders there are and how much cross-agency collaboration is going to be necessary in order for us to maximize our efforts. We are serious about coastal restoration and protection. We are in a race against time, and I think that that is demonstrated by the announcements that we're making today and how beneficial this is going to be to the state of Louisiana. So thank you again for everyone for being here. And now, Chip, if you would come up and get us started.
So the governor talked about that he will be allocating at least $115 million from state surplus into the Coastal Trust Fund. But it's also very exciting to announce today that for the first time since 2006, the state of Louisiana will be receiving the maximum amount under the Gulf of Mexico Energy Security Act. So well over $100 million will be coming to the coastal program from offshore oil and gas production in federal waters this fiscal year. So with over $115 million from surplus and over $100 million from additional revenues from the Gulf of Mexico Energy Security Act, we will be able to make additional investments in every corner of coastal Louisiana. Areas in southwest Louisiana, across south central, and into southeast Louisiana. With these revenues, we will be making additional investments in our local levee districts, who do excellent work in providing flood protection to the people of South Louisiana. An additional $12.8 million for Lafourche Parish and North Lafourche and South Lafourche levee districts. $16 million for Terrebonne Parish and Terrebonne levee district, including the Elliott Jones pump station. $16.8 million. Where's Representative Kerner? $16.8 million for the Goose Bayou alignment for Lafitte, and $2.5 million for the Kellogg pump station in St. Charles. As the governor noted, an additional $60 million will be allocated to the West Shore Hurricane Protection Project in St. John, St. James, and St. Charles Parish, which will significantly reduce the state's overall cost share on that project. The Jesuit Bend levee in Plaquemines Parish will receive an additional $10 million to better protect the most populated areas in Plaquemines Parish. In St. Mary Parish, an additional $3 million for flood protection in the western portion of the parish, which experienced heavy impacts as a result of Hurricane Barry. We will also continue to support our two coastal universities, who are not only doing research, but also educating the next generation of coastal leaders with an additional $5 million to the Nichols Coastal Center and additional revenues coming here to the LSU Center for River Studies. We are also excited to be making our first significant non-disaster related investments in home elevations, voluntary acquisitions, flood proofing, and non-structural aspects of the Coastal Master Plan. Funds announced today will also be used to expedite real estate acquisitions for 2 mid-basin sediment diversion projects. And additionally, we will also be able to enhance or fortify current projects so that they last longer or have a larger footprint, like the Cameron Parish Gulf Shoreline Protection Project and the North Vermilion Bay Shoreline Protection Project, as well as renewing the CPRA's restoration partnerships programs with nonprofit entities across coastal Louisiana. But today just isn't about projects and money. As the governor noted, it's also about policies and initiatives this administration will be focusing on over the next 4 years. First of all, I cannot tell you how thrilled I am, and I'll even say, maybe even pumped up. I don't know if I can even say that at a governor's press conference, that Charles Sutcliffe will be named the Chief Resilience Officer of coastal Louisiana. I also want to thank the Center for Planning and Excellence and Camille Manning Broom, who will be assisting Charles in helping to integrate resilience thinking into each of our different state agencies. In the second term, we are going to be working closely with the Corps to seek out more flexibility when it comes to flood fighting efforts along the Mississippi River, especially exploring the possibility of using additional sediment diversions upstream from New Orleans to help with flood fighting efforts along the Mississippi River. The threat of excess water in the river can become an asset in our quest to restore the ecosystem. Recent modeling efforts have shown that by building additional sediment diversions upriver can reduce the need to operate the Bonnie Carey spillway by half of the capacity by which it was operated last year. It is time that our policies and tools to manage these rivers more accurately reflect the complexity of a dynamic ecosystem and economic system. And this includes doing more to address hypoxia issues by engaging northern states in a more direct and productive way to decrease the hypoxic zone in the Gulf of Mexico. So let's make no mistake about it. Challenges remain ahead, and more work is needed. But exciting days are ahead for South Louisiana. And with all of the cabinet secretaries that are behind me, and with Governor Edwards leading our state, I know that we will be successful. And so before we hear from each of the cabinet secretaries, as Governor Edwards noted, we have Colonel Murphy, the commander of the New Orleans District U.S. Army Corps of Engineers office, who is our federal partner in all of these projects, in all of these initiatives. And I think it is safe to say, and I hope the Colonel would agree with me, that the relationship between the state of Louisiana and the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers is stronger today than it ever has been. And so I'd invite Colonel Murphy up to come say a few words.
So I know there's a lot of speakers here today, but I just wanted to say a brief remark. The Corps of Engineers motto is, "We engineer solutions to the nation's toughest challenges." And here in South Louisiana, just like the governor and Chip said, some extremely tough challenges. I'm excited to lead the federal engineer, the Corps of Engineers here in Louisiana, in partnership with the state. I would completely agree that the relationship between the Corps of Engineers and the state of Louisiana probably hasn't been better. We coordinate at my level on a daily, if not weekly basis, and certainly down at the action officer level. So it's an honor to be here. I think this is just a lot of great news for the state of Louisiana, especially with a quote that I'll close with, which is, "Disaster recovery is six times more expensive than disaster prevention." And I think we are moving in the right direction. So thank you very much. I'm glad to be a partner here with the state of Louisiana.
Well, good morning, everyone. My name's Tom Harris. I'm Secretary of the Department of Natural Resources. Today, Louisiana sits in a unique position to take advantage of carbon capture, use, and storage, or as I like to call it, carbon management. It really doesn't matter where you stand on climate change. Carbon management has become just part of doing business in a global economy. Louisiana already has many industrial sources of carbon. which means great potential demand for carbon management strategies, people, and companies with a lot of incentive, including federal tax credits, to find ways to make carbon management work in a changing economic environment. Our state also has deep, well-confined geological storage options in close proximity to that industrial base, as well as some history of putting carbon to work in applications such as enhanced oil recovery. Louisiana has unrivaled existing pipeline infrastructure, including one major pipeline that already crosses most of the state into Texas. Add all these factors together, and we see great opportunity to extend the lifespan of our traditional energy production and petrochemical industries by lessening their carbon footprint and reducing pressure to move away from traditional sources prematurely. At the same time, moving to expand carbon management opens up entirely new economic growth opportunities for companies to make that connection between those that produce carbon waste and those that can put it to use. At the Department of Natural Resources, we look forward to working with our fellow state agencies, working with industry, with our federal partners, and with non-governmental organizations to reduce carbon emissions and bring additional investment and prosperity to Louisiana while helping to address our coastal crisis. Thank you.
Merci, Gouverneur Edwards, et bonjour to mes amis. I'm Secretary of Wildlife and Fisheries Jack Montusset, and I've got to say that we are in the early development stages of a plan to help rehabilitate the oyster resources in Louisiana. Those resources impacted by the 2019 floods, but also those resources that have been impacted as a result of coastal changes over the years. We will soon reach out to the oyster industry leaders to get their input on ideas and discussions. In fact, after this meeting is over, my Fisheries Assistant Secretary Patrick Banks is headed to New Orleans to meet with some of those leaders. Preliminarily, initiatives outlined in the draft plan include traditional coach planning on public grounds, providing reimbursement funding assistance to leaseholders for oyster rehabilitation work on their leases, and development of new public oyster grounds to address changing coastal conditions. We're also working to identify funding sources to help implement rehabilitation initiatives. And CPRA has made commitments to assist us in this regard, as there are several areas where oyster rehabilitation work can be folded into coastal restoration projects. We want to thank them for their commitment to helping us solve the challenges for the oyster industry in Louisiana. Thank you.
Good morning. I'm Chuck Carr Brown. I'm the Secretary of Louisiana DEQ. First of all, I want to reiterate what the governor says. There are lots of tools in our toolbox to address sea level rise and subsidence. We have greenhouse gas permits that we're looking at. We're looking at an overall budget for CO2. And one of the tools that we have in our toolbox to deal with the issues in the Gulf of Mexico regarding hypoxia is water quality trading. The world is actually watching what we do here in Louisiana. I've heard a quote from my EPA directors over water, and they say the only way that we can reduce nutrients into the Mississippi River and ultimately into the Gulf is through incentivizing it. Well, we started a process 2 years ago creating a water quality trading program. That's where we take entities with higher cost of compliance or higher cost of meeting the discharge limits with matching them with entities that have already undertaken projects. We published the rules in October of 2019. So we are allowing within watersheds and outside of watersheds to actually engage in this trading process. We also are engaging with non-point source versus point source. So when I got a farmer that decides he wants to use a portion of his acreage for constructed wetland or retention pond and reduces the nutrient levels that makes its way to the Mississippi River, we incentivize that. I'd like to talk about how much do we put into the Mississippi River. 1% comes from Louisiana of the nitrogen that makes its way to the Gulf. 1%. So when I'm in a room with my counterparts from what I like to call the I-Caucus, the Iowa, Idaho, Indiana, Illinois, we look at Missouri and of course Arkansas. They all get real nervous because they know we know that fact. But they're watching what we do because not only do I want to incentivize watershed to watershed, but I want to also incentivize state to state. So if we get it right here, the folks are going to follow, and I want you to know Louisiana's leading the way. Thank you.
Good morning. I'm Sean Wilson, Secretary of Transportation, and my fellow cabinet member Chip gave me 2 minutes to talk about something we've talked about 2 decades, and since the governor's sitting there, I better pay attention and do it in 2 minutes. The one project I'm going to talk about really is something we've talked about for a number of years, and that's dredging the Mississippi River and deepening that river, because it's going to have immense economic benefit, not just to the state environmentally, but to a number of industries and ports. And we have the largest port complex system in the world sitting here from Baton Rouge to the mouth of the Mississippi. Working with the Army Corps of Engineers, DOTD is partnering with them to do just that. This Vital Louisiana project is going to add an additional 5 feet of draft to the Mississippi River. Funding with $262 million, the Mississippi River Deepening Project comprises of a combination of federal and state resources. I'm happy to tell you that in 2016, this governor made a commitment to work toward the goal and being prepared to do our share and match the federal resources. So we have in place today the dollars to begin matching these funds immediately. $131 million is going to be awarded to the Corps of Engineers for funding this $85 million project in fiscal year 20, with the President's budget of 21 having an additional $45 million. That gives the state a responsibility of $85 million for match for the entire project, and we stand today ready and prepared to do phase 1 and be prepared for future phases with this governor's commitment to capital outlay. And beyond his financial commitment to this governor wrote letters to that Iowa caucus, or that I-Caucus, as Chuck said, and we, in fact, are enjoying an additional $2 million from the Soy Transportation Coalition based in Iowa toward this project. It's going to be broken into 3 phases, and the first phase consists of dredging southwest pass of the river. More importantly, we're reducing the state match by working with Chip and his operation for the dredging that's going to be done to get some beneficial use and reduce the matching costs for the state, hopefully to the tune of $5 million plus, Colonel Murphy. I'm slipping that in so that you can approve that for us. And we expect that those contracts will be awarded in multiple contracts before the year's end. The only thing that's standing between us and 5 feet, my friends, are really the availability of dredging equipment, as well as the river conditions and the environmental conditions that could potentially delay that. We've got the commitment, we've got the resources, and most certainly we have the relationship with our partners at the federal level and the leadership of the governor and the cabinet that you see with us. So thank you for having me, Chip, and I think I got it under 2 minutes.
Hello, I'm Pat Forbes. I'm Executive Director of the Louisiana Office of Community Development, but I'm here today because I am the current chairman of the Governor's Council on Watershed Management, along with several of the other secretaries up here. And I will tell you, in 2016, shortly after the August floods, the governor looked at a few of us up here and said, we're not doing what we need to do for the people of the state of Louisiana in managing flood risk. Yes, we have the Coastal Protection and Restoration Authority in the coast. Now here we are with riverine flooding that's devastating our state. We've got to do something different. We've got to make decisions by data, by information, by science and engineering, just like we do in the coast. The result of that, after months and years of work by lots of folks up here and lots of folks in this audience, is the Louisiana Watershed Initiative. Ultimately, we also got $1.2 billion allocated from the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development to mitigate future flood risk. And the way that this ties into today's ceremony is that it is all about water management. And in the same way that the state of Louisiana is leading the country in coastal science and coastal management, we are headed in that same direction with respect to riverine flooding, and we will make that happen. And the governor's leadership has been absolutely paramount in getting us there, along with everybody else up here, and we look forward to learning from the CPRA and everybody else and making sure that we do this well and make the people of the state proud. Thank you.
Don Pearson, Secretary for Louisiana Economic Development, and very pleased to have an opportunity to be part of this conversation today about coastal. But Chip, it goes beyond coastal, so you'll also hear us talk about water management as an industry. So we think of coastal to begin with, but then we think about flood planning, and we think about agriculture need for water, aquaculture, so important to our state. And in the future, the predictive analytics that can be developed here, bringing the ability of our weather satellites and the buoys and all the ways that we can collect data and know before 4 inches of water drops into downtown Houston where the grids are going to go down, what assisted living facilities need to be evacuated. And once we have these packages of predictive analytics put together, that's a marketable commodity globally. And the governor touched on that. So we will continue as the Economic Development Division here to recruit and secure and retain all the kinds of companies that are going to make sense in this water management industry. That's engineering, that's science and technology, that's IT modeling, that's the physical modeling that's represented here in this facility. Our waterways are our commercial lanes. Water is important. And so those factors are going to continue to drive activities for industry, for many of the industries represented in our state. So when we talk about a billion-dollar project or the kinds of monies that we're putting against this important effort, what we can also do is bring about the opportunity to drive what happens when there's science and engineering coming together. The plans are produced, and the plans are put forward for proposals, and those proposals become contracts with contractors, subcontractors, with demands out there for products and services. We want to harness all of that information and utilize a new Coastal Technical Assistance Center to help bring those dollars and those opportunities to Louisiana companies and Louisiana workers. And we'll do that in partnership with Workforce Development that you'll hear about more in a few minutes. But with this new opportunity, we will stand up using a successful model, the Procurement Technical Assistance Center, which has helped small businesses across our state secure millions of dollars in government contracts to provide services and products to government agencies, to now secure a place with those major contractors and drive the opportunity that's represented by these millions, billions of dollars that can put Louisiana citizens to work and make Louisiana companies stronger. Our goal is a world-class science, a world-class engineering, and a world-class execution of taking this opportunity and delivering it back to the state's economy and making our workers and our companies stronger than ever before. Thank you.
Good morning. I'm Ava Dejoie. I'm Secretary at the Louisiana Workforce Commission. I would like to thank the Governor for his leadership and support in this effort. His charge has been clear that the businesses and job seekers in Louisiana need to be the leaders in this effort of rebuilding our communities. No one can do it better than us, our own citizens that know our land. I'd like to thank Chip as well for convening us. I have to say we have a great history on rainy days. On the Governor's second inaugural address, Chip and I reached from under our umbrellas and gave each other a high five when the Governor said coastal restoration and workforce would be paramount in this second term. He issued a clarion call and we accepted. LWC has a dual role in this effort, ensuring that both Louisiana job seekers and Louisiana businesses receive the resources, access, and support necessary to rebuild our communities and our great state. The Louisiana First Hiring Act mandates that the LWC has the exclusive ability to advertise job orders associated with these jobs on our website, on our online job matching site, Hire, for 10 days in an effort to make sure that Louisiana citizens have access to those jobs first. I'm pleased to announce that LWC is allocating $100,000 beginning March 15th for the purchase of TWIC cards for individuals applying for these jobs. Transportation worker identification cards are required on nearly all of these jobs, And at a cost of $125 each, that's sometimes the thing that keeps workers from accessing these jobs. Additionally, we have a responsibility to Louisiana businesses, as Secretary Pearson said. We work with recruitment, and we assist businesses to recruit job seekers. We also work with our existing Louisiana businesses through incumbent worker training to have them to access the funds that they need to train their existing workforce. And through our federal training dollars, we can provide on-the-job training funding for a wage reimbursement of up to 50%, and also establishing registered apprenticeship programs. We are excited to be a part of this effort. We have dedicated a single staff person to manage these efforts so that there is a one-stop shop for both our businesses and our job seekers. But we have a whole unit of people that will be working to ensure that we provide all the resources and programs that is available through LWC to support this effort. I'd like to thank the governor and Chip again, and we stand ready to assist. Thank you.
Good morning, everybody. I'm Jimmy LeBlanc, Secretary of Public Safety and Corrections, and it's good to be here this morning. And Sean, I only got a minute. You got two, so I'm not sure about that. But anyway, I want to thank the governor and Chip for giving me this opportunity, especially to be here today. I mentioned that, this is good for state economics, but it's also good for our returning citizens. And Chip's already arranged a meeting. I've had an opportunity to do some brainstorming with contractors to talk about what the needs are. In fact, in next month, I have a scheduled meeting to take a trip to the coast to look at what's going on. And look, we're about building better lives, not bigger prisons. And I know y'all have heard a lot about our restoration projects and what we're doing to restore those people coming out of our prisons. And I always like to remind everybody, we have roughly 15,000 people that are discharging out of our jails, and we all need to understand that. So, again, to be successful, a job is critical. Just to mention the fact that probation and parole right now, we have a 44% unemployment in our probation and parole division. These are people that are on our streets and that we're supervising. That gives you an indication of the struggles that we have on employment. We've been to job summits with Right on Crime to promote this with our business partners and encouraging them to take part in what we're trying to do. And again, I can't thank Chip and the governor enough to talk about what we're getting ready to do on the coast, and I certainly appreciate being a part of it and being included in it. So again, thank you, Chip. Thank you, Governor. I appreciate being here today.
Well, good morning. My name is Justin Aaronworth, and I'm the President and CEO of the Water Institute, and today particularly honored to be batting cleanup with this remarkable roster. Governor and Chip, thank you for including us today, and it's a real honor to welcome everybody here to the Water Campus. And I think this place and this moment really represent what we're here to talk about. All of my colleagues at the Institute were honored today by this designation to serve as the state's innovation and collaboration hub. Because I think we all recognize that to address the challenges that have been talked about this morning and so many others, it requires all of us working together. And that this work requires building upon the tremendous knowledge that we have accumulated in this state over the course of decades, across the universities all around our state and beyond, and our not-for-profit partners, as well as all in the private sector who have been contributing to this effort. So we are honored to continue that sense of collaboration and innovation, and particularly excited about what the governor mentioned in terms of the creation of a model repository. And while that might sound a bit wonky, what it really is and represents is a virtual library, the opportunity to take models and data sets that exist and make them available to everyone across the research community, so that as that knowledge is built upon, we can collectively benefit from it as we move into the future. We're thrilled by the opportunity to add support to all those who are working in the Atchafalaya, and as has been mentioned, the importance of the lower Mississippi River. There is a critically important study starting now, has been underway for some time, the Lower Mississippi River Management Program. And we're honored to work with the Corps of Engineers and CPRA, folks like Brian Lazina and Carol Parson Richards, and so many others, on looking at the river from a holistic perspective, from a navigation, a flood, a restoration perspective, and all that it represents for South Louisiana and beyond. So today, we're thrilled to be able to support everyone who has been a part of this meeting and so many others. Our role at the Institute is to take the best available science and use it to inform decision-making. The decisions that the governor and Chip, Brent Haas, and all the talented leaders at the CPRA need to make, they're really difficult decisions. But together, informed by the best knowledge and the best available science, we're more than up to the challenge. So thank you all very much.
Well, again, I want to thank all of you for being here today. And to close this out, I'm going to use the words of our governor. Governor Edwards always says that this is our moment and this is our time to address coastal restoration and hurricane protection in this state in a way in which we have never done before. And I know with all of the people behind me and with the help of every single person in this room, we will absolutely be successful in restoring and protecting coastal Louisiana. So I thank you for being here today.